very visual. You're moving around. We see you. We're watching you. We love it. We're going to talk about your broad strokes. Why the title Invisible for the show?
Yes. What was the first name? What was the first time?
The End of a Secret.
Okay. That's where it started. That was another bad idea. Because I had this whole thing like, what's at the end of a secret? And I was like, well, the truth is what's at the end of a secret. Which is also like with the new record, Closer Together. I was like, hey, Closer Than Together, Seth. And I was like, oh, it's a terrible idea. So I was like, no, we got to do it. It's good. It's good. It's good. But when we were going with the End of a Secret, which might not be the truth. The end of the secret is a lie. But we were talking about how it would print on the book or on a poster, and I was like, well, it'd be cool if it sort of faded or was invisible. We used some clear ink or something like that. And Bob Chase, who helped, who actually is responsible for printing the book, put it together. He heard that and saw that in the whole concept, and he's like, it fits more. So he didn't tell me instantly. He's like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you later. And then he got hung up pretty quick and developed it when he presented it. It was like, oh, that's good. That's good. It's kind of glorifying something that's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be true. Just like a lot of songs, they don't necessarily have to be true to be true. I don't know if I'm hitting it tonight. We'll just listen.
If you stand up, I can make your.
Yeah.
So my question would be, how do you find balance between being a visual artist, a musician, father, a husband, your family? That's a billion hours. How do you find the balance to do all the things that you need to do?
I'm going to defer to my wife. I think she'd be able to say whether I actually do find balance. We don't answer that, but
Can we talk after?
What's the example? I don't know if this explains that, but like the other day we were doing something and Bob was telling, both of us were in the same place, and Bob was like, man, I am so off today and so worn out, We were just like, and we were going into something that was going to be 6 hours long. Let's just be off. Let's just be off in this. And that's a discipline, like trying not to, that's always a big part of therapy, like you embrace whatever it is you are, you let it be, and you don't try to fight it. That's important for me to listen to that whenever it's saying don't go to the studio. And I have more fun when I'm listening to that and not doing constantly. And I start undoing, non-doing. And then when I do, it's much more productive. It's so much more productive. It's like it takes so much less time to make good things because I'm rested. I'm having fun. There was something about doodling. Like all this is just a bunch of doodling. Really, ultimately, it's just somehow I've fallen into this pattern where I take time to doodle. And I'm doodling on big pieces of canvas, and doodling on notebook paper, and doodling on the recording gear, and so it's really fun. So it never feels like so much. At this point, it's not always been this way, and it could be different again for sure. But at this point, it feels like the privilege that it is. It's a lot of fun. I'm trying to take that.
Another question.
So you said that you knew from a young age that you were good at these things that you're good at. With having children who are young, do you see some of yourself in them with their creativity?
Yeah, and to clarify, I wasn't sure I was going to be good at any of them. I just knew that I was going to be famous for it. I'm a true believer that every single one of us is a beloved son or daughter of God, period. I know that for certain. And because of that, this isn't the only bright shining person in this room. Every single one of us. It's insane. It's insane how true that is. It's so true that it's not so special, right? And that's great. That's good. That's a good thing. So that was what was, I think that's what I'm articulating as like, I'm going to be great. But when I'm great at whatever, it never, and our parents told us that exact thing. Dad used to say, if you're a carpenter, you're going to be a great carpenter. And you can be a very popular carpenter these days. That's great. You could be famous for that. But I just always lived like that, like someone was watching. It was God the whole time. It was right there with me and in me, the whole time. And when I was younger, it was so much easier to access that. And now, growing older, it's about opening up to access that again. Because for a little while, I've been thinking that it wasn't that, And I don't know. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not, I didn't really know that things would work out. And they weren't. I'm in such it's really a particular, peculiar position. The way that Seth and I and Bob and the rest of the group, the way that we have had success is so peculiar and particular to, specific to our situation. Not this art career is the same thing. Here we are in the museum show, and I've really not shown, I haven't shown much at all. That's so bizarre to me, but expected, because I know that, because I know what I am, I know what we are. Well, maybe not. I like this theory a lot. I'm really fond of this. It's a good one. It makes everybody happy.
Yeah, as someone who is not visual, I'm wondering what is in your mind when you're going to a blank canvas and you pick up a brush? Do you have an image that you're trying to put onto a page? And how much does what's in your mind change as you're going through the process of painting?
It can change 180, it can change 100%. And it's always different every time I approach canvas. I've used grids before to try to get likeness as close as I can. I have gone to canvas with nothing, no reference of anything, and just gone at it to see what happened. I've designed on the computer many times over and over and over, very specifically. I don't have a specific way, a formula. Right now, I'm really interested in prepping all the canvases as notebook pages, large notebook pages, and then I'm painting on them. There's something about the notebook page that's really intimidating to me. So when I approach a canvas now, it's a giant notebook page, a 9-foot notebook page. That's interesting. So it's making me do things that I didn't expect. But every painting really turns out different than what I thought, whatever I was thinking. I'm not sure whatever I thought it would be.
Questions?
I have a question. I'm actually a middle school science teacher, okay? So I am non-artistic in every way.
Okay.
But I have several students who are very artistic, and they doodle a lot in class and everything, and they're non-academics. What recommendation would you have for students to foster that, and me as a teacher to really appreciate the gift that they have? Because it's something that I don't fully understand, but they would rather be artistic and explore that side, and I'd like to encourage that, and maybe school isn't the right avenue for them.
Right.
How do you as a teacher, and how do you really foster that in children, like yourself? Maybe you were the same way when you were in 7th grade.
I was. I have no idea how to foster things. I'm not a teacher. I really don't, but I was that way. I can speak on that. I was a terrible student through high school. In fact, there's a science teacher, Mr. Coggins. Are you here tonight? He was here last night. So. All right. Well, Monty Coggins was one of the teachers that actually he's one of the few. He really is the one that kind of gave me space and admired what I did. And I didn't read, I didn't study. Not until well into college did I read a book or do assignments outside of doodling. I doodled constantly. I don't know if there's really a lot of hope for kids doing that in science class. I mean, I think that's okay.
Well, and they have a future in the medical profession as a, you know.
For sure.
Yes.
Y'all remember what Leland used to say? These are classmates of mine that had studied under Leland Wallen used to tell us about painters that went on to be surgeons. Do you remember this? Ah, well, he used to say, oh, they went on to medical school because they had such specific talents with their hands that they would serve. Now, I have no idea how that kind of thinking transfers, but I was terrible in science, in that, really bad. I don't know. I will say that I see in my children, one is always in the now. He never thinks about what's before or after tomorrow or the day, like never. And he's not methodical at all, but he expresses himself constantly, and he makes things in creative ways that none of us, nobody else but him thinks of. Where I have a daughter that is so methodical that she doesn't even have to have a natural ability for rhythm. She'll train herself and plays the piano and the violin and can train herself to do it. Where the other will sit there and like just belt out. And you're like, gosh, it's incredible. But he's like, you try to give him piano lessons and it's not going to show up. That was me. There's no rush. That was what I would think. Like for my kids, I'm thinking there's no rush. I had no clue. We didn't go on our first tour until I was 26 years old, like first official tour. I had no idea this is what my living would be. So we don't have to know. We still have to grow up, I think, a little earlier than we do. I recently just became a man. This year. How do I know? I don't know, I just feel it. I'm going to defer to my wife.
Specific moment.
Well, yeah, she can tell you about no, like the threshold of, this is totally off subject, but maybe not. The threshold of being a child into manhood, like a boy into manhood, I stayed in for a long time. I guess because I could. I think a lot of us can. That's not just me, but that's the difference.
I just want to make sure I get some people in the back.
Yeah, so when you do your work in your studio, do you put any music on? You listen to yourself?
Well, let's see. I mean, yeah, I have before. It's back and forth. Sometimes I can't take any music, and maybe we are performing something. Maybe there is a song that I've got to relearn that I used to sing that I don't know anymore. I will just loop for 2 hours. That happens. If it's something that's going to drive me to write, that's bad. That's not a good combo. That's a quiet distraction when I'm really focused. Because painting, it is so. Once you break through in that first hour or so, then you're so in, and that's when, really, out of this world moments happen. They really do. It is a runner high. I mean, it is incredible. And once you get in that, you don't want to break out of it. So if I am listening to something, it is very repetitive. I like there's a group called Neurosis. Neurosis is like this really spacious metal. I like that type of thing. That's really good for me in the studio.
I can't imagine it was easy to share all these pieces in the exhibit. So I was wondering, what was the hardest piece for you to share and why?
Well, the boy eating, that one is very much this realization of this little me that's been put in check over the recent year. In that threshold I'm talking about, there's a dying off of that was very, very fragile and tender and very vulnerable for me. And I realized in hindsight, look at the painting, it really looks a lot more like me than it did the portrait that I was making of my son. It really is. It's much more me at 7 years old than it is him. And I realized, I kind of looking back on it, it dawned on me that this is, I can't help but paint this little me right now. But that's the one. That's the one. I don't want to trail off. That's the one. Look at that, that's a moment.
You can ramble.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking along those same lines, the music does come from a place of vulnerability,
It does.
where you open up yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, whatever. The same thing being with the artwork. When you put a song out into the world, it's out into the world and it changes and becomes what whoever's listening to it is feeling or experiencing at the time. With your artwork, how do you let go of that, those things that touch you so tenderly and came from that place inside of you? How do you go about sharing it to the world into the point of where you can actually sell it and let it go and become something else to someone else?
Yeah, I know. That the painting with the boy with the toy gun, it's one of those tender moments. Very, very dear, very special to me. And I don't really know. I think somewhere along, I used to not be able to imagine parting with any of them.
Right.
And now I've just kind of said, you know what? What am I going to do with them anyway? I'm just going to like blinders and go, and they're available to the world. Period. I bet later there'll be some that I regret, And there are a few that I've chosen and said, these need to stay. But I don't know. I think it speaks to presence and really wrapping around the moment and not getting caught up. Nostalgia is something that I indulge in a lot and really, really, I geek out on it, and I have to really put that in check and at bay because it can tear me apart
And hold you back.
and hold me back. And so when I'm here now, really none of them matter. Really, they're just paint on canvas, I know that's not true. They are really good representations of little moments that then I labor in spending time with those moments. So they are very nostalgic in that way. What I was going to say to you, this was, what's the word?
Piggyback.
What is it?
Piggyback.
What is it?
Piggyback.
Yeah, that's it. Relates to that. Sorry. There's a painter in New York named Jacob Hayes who I sat for a portrait show called it was Artist Painting Artist, and it went on to be in the Smithsonian National Portrait Competition. And I sat for him the first day that I ever sat through therapy, and I was just a vulnerable wreck, and so just small and damaged. And I didn't think a lot about it. I went in and sat for it because it was what I was going to do. But when I saw the painting, it was so that moment. And it's like, I got to buy this painting. It is so realistic and so incredibly, just so incredibly done. So incredibly realistic and naturalistic and so well done. I had to have it because it now sits in my studio, and it's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I look at it I'm not there anymore. This is awesome.
Maybe like one happy question, and then we're gonna stop.
Nobody's getting sad here. I'm wearing this leather jacket.
And that shirt.
Yeah.
Sure. Come on.
So Scott, in music, there's a natural life cycle. There's an album, a tour, recording, and a new album. For your visual art, what's that timeline look like after this? What's next for us who love it?
Yeah. Well, it's already happening. I've already moved on from a lot of this work, and one thing leads to another with the music and with the vision, with my painting, my printmaking. So that's kind of in real time, and that's been going on in real time since any of these pieces these pieces are part of that real-time journey. So I see commonality and theme in this new group of work that I'm making now, if it's a group. Like I said, go back to 2012, I was like, I'm not in a cycle here. I'm gonna work until I have the work that I wanna show, and when time is right, I'll know. So I don't see any point in making a deadline. Like, that's another thing, we work really hard to live in a bubble of creativity that has no budgets or deadlines. Say, you know what, we have to protect this. So I'm just steady working. Now, I do, like I said, I do work much faster than I used to. And I also have learned how to delegate my resources, use my resources in better ways. So as screens are being made, I'm coming off a tour, I get home and there they are. Or while I'm on tour, I've designed what I'm gonna paint, more or less, at least where I'm gonna start. And then I'm right in there, and it happens fast. So that's happening now, and it's, I'm sure I'll show much sooner. In fact, I will have another small show in January at Soco Gallery in Charlotte with newer work. So which it will be, I think communicating with this show very well and working, it relates to it. There's that word, it relates to it very well.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank
It
you.
means a lot.
All
We're
right.
gonna stop now because there's a party that's about to start. And
Yeah.
I hope you all are staying with us for this evening, and thank you all so